Yeah, you need to use a different browser.
Well, I use a browser, 3 different types of browsers. Hello, everybody. We're joined back by Larry Johnson, ex-CIA analyst and expert on many things geopolitical, on this slightly tardy live stream. But thanks for joining us. Larry, it's good to see you. Where are you coming from? It looks like a different background today.
No, well, it's I'm sitting outside in my lanai. So,
very nice, nice. I remember we went to Florida once, and we had one of our own to enjoy. This was like 25 years ago now. I was 8. Anyway, it's good to see you. So, I mean, there's a lot happening at the moment with the war in Iran, the war with Ukraine. Everything just is constantly in a stir of fluctuation, isn't it? I personally just look at what the Israelis are doing in Lebanon as a complete the government is intent on trying to jeopardize this peace deal, right?
Yeah.
Or the process more broadly.
Well, the Iran ended the talks yesterday, and would only restart them if the United States makes a number of concessions, or one, they stop the Israeli attacks in Lebanon, no attacks on Beirut, but other comments by some of the members of the IRGC indicate stop Israel's attacks entirely in southern Lebanon and in Gaza. That hasn't happened yet. And to cease attacking Iranian positions around Keshem Island and Bandar Abbas. That hasn't happened. So, and then the Iranians, according to a source that provided information to myself and Pepe Escobar together, this source indicated that we got this information last Thursday, and he said, one, Iran's going to pull out of the talks. 2, Iran's going to withdraw from the non-proliferation treaty, and 3, Iran will do a demonstration, detonation of a nuclear bomb. So we'll see how reliable the source is. And the first thing he predicted happened on Monday, so we now know what to look for with respect to number 2 and then number 3.
Well, the testing of a nuclear weapon, Larry, would be, I think, universally decried by the international community, regardless of who you are. I think most people agree that even the Chinese and Russians don't really want a nuclear Iran. Or you disagree?
Well, no, actually, Iran will be doing this with the support of the Chinese and the Russians.
Why would
they're putting Israel on notice? Don't even think about it, because they worry that Israel is in the hands of crazy people, and they're not completely suicidal.
No, but you made a lot of claims that have been correct. Some haven't turned out true. And for the Iranians to make a nuclear weapon detonation would be the first in, well, quite a while. I mean, the North Koreans like to do their missile testing, but
right.
Explain to me why the Chinese and the Russians would want a nuclear weapon from Iran, or a nuclear capable Iran, because China said just when Trump was in Beijing that he didn't want a nuclear Iran. So are they just trying?
Well, that's what Trump. Why do you believe what Trump says?
No,
I mean, can you give me one example where what Trump has said has actually turned out to be true? He's made 8 for the last 8 weeks. Has insisted that there is an imminent deal. The deal is near. They just got one more thing to finish, and the deal is closed. He's been lying the entire time.
Well, of course he has. But I was talking about Xi Jinping, actually. Xi Jinping said that they don't want Iran that's capable of launching a nuclear.
Xi Jinping made no such statement in public.
Yes, he did.
To my knowledge, did he?
Yeah.
Or was it Trump?
Why was it Chinese and the Russians on the JCPOA in the first place then?
No, well, that was 10, 11 years ago. But now the situation's changed. You've had 2 surprise attacks, unjustified attacks, in the midst of actual negotiations where Iran was willing to say, "Hey, we don't want a nuke, and we're willing to provide guarantees." In fact, they had provided they'd signed on to the JCPOA. It was the United States that walked away from that, not Iran. And so, from just a game theory standpoint, after repeated attacks to destroy Iran, to decapitate it, to try to destroy the leadership, to dismantle it, the natural thing for a country to do to ensure that it's not attacked by the United States is for it to have a nuclear weapon. That's logical, and it's not China that's running around attacking countries. It's not Russia that is running around the world attacking countries. Yes, Russia's attacking Ukraine in response to repeated NATO provocations, but here's Iran that's been victimized twice within a year.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with some of that, but again, Larry, like there's a difference between a nation state launching a kinetic war, completely unjustified. It's a war of choice. I think we know how much we agree on that. But to go to the extent to actually get a nuclear weapon, which is what MAD is all about, it's quite a big level difference.
What's the difference? I'm not following the logic here.
What do you mean? What's the difference between nuclear war and conventional war?
Yeah, what's the difference? All the difference is you get a bigger explosion and you have some radioactivity, but you're still killing people. And in fact, the United States during the last year of the war with Japan, they killed more people with conventional bombs than they did with the atomic bombs.
Right.
Yeah. No, it's just you're investing it. It's the possibility of massive use of nuclear weapons. It's a more effective killing machine. But let's not pretend that there's like good war and bad war.
Not sure anyone said that, did they?
Well, no, I'm not saying that you said that, but you're drawing a distinction between, you call it kinetic war and atomic war.
Well, it is a big distinction. There's the whole.
Okay, what is that big distinction?
Well, my father can tell you better since he's a PhD.
No, I'm asking you, what is that big distinction?
Well, the entire doctrine that applies to it, the entire psychology, the entire ramifications that come from it. You can't seriously be suggesting that the Iranians having an IRGC, Iranian Navy military, is the same as a nuclear weapon. It's in the same sort of. If Putin uses a warhead, if the Israelis use a warhead in the battle field, it completely changes the dynamics of the war. It completely unhinges the escalation ladder, because the whole point we're talking about when we talk about escalation is within the realms of kinetic warfare.
It provides for more destruction. It does increase dramatically the number of non-combatants that would be killed. But this.
Why did apartheid South Africa give up their nuclear weapons?
I don't know. They're probably foolish to do so.
Yes,
because if they kept it, the likelihood of being attacked by an outsider is far reduced. That's one of the reasons North Korea got those weapons, and did so with the help of A.Q. Khan to resist being hit by the United States and by South Korea.
No,
it seems to be a pretty effective strategy so far.
No, it is, and whilst we're having a good debate here, I think bottom line, I am in agreement with you that the idea of a deterrence as a nuclear weapon is the single highest form, isn't it? That's why the Japanese, the South Koreans are thinking that they might need their own nuclear weapons, because they can't rely on the umbrella of the United States anymore. So in that argument, right, to take your side for point of argument, the Iranians.
It's not my side. I'm simply reporting what a source who's got knowledge and access is saying. And they're saying that Iran is now threatened that it will use or produce and use a nuke in a demonstration fashion in order for deterrence against the possibility of attacks by the United States and Israel. So I'm not advocating one way or the other. I'm simply reporting what this knowledgeable source is claiming is underway. And he gave 3 indicators And he said he said one will happen, then two will happen, and then three. Well, he said this last Thursday, and I'm just telling you, one happened yesterday. So remains to be seen if two happens. So if two happens, which is withdrawal from the NPT, that increases my confidence that the person giving this information actually knows what he or she is talking about.
I think that's a good signal, isn't it? To withdraw from the NPT would be a pretty massive shift. What is it? 100?
Well, yeah, it'd be ways saying that they don't want to violate an international treaty, so they're going to withdraw from it because the international treaty is meaningless. It's not a requirement. Not every country is required to sign on and be a part of it.
No,
and what Iran has learned is by playing by the rules, playing in accordance with the international order, so-called. It was betrayed by that order. The IAEA inspectors used their access to collect intelligence on Iranian scientists, and they passed that information to Mossad that was then used to kill those scientists.
So what I think is indicative of this is, on the one hand, the United States is one of the countries that has obviously been the bedrock, the architect of the current system, right, Larry? But at the same time, half the treaties that have been established, written in that post-World War II order, the US has not only not even ratified, but it's never even signed them. Like, I think it's the remarkable treaty on minesweeping or usage of mines in warfare. The US, Ukrainians, and the Israelis, if I remember, just to name three, had never signed it, which is rather interesting considering the war in Ukraine right now and the minefields around eastern Ukraine. But on the other hand, what I think is worth considering, and I'm curious what you think about this then, is I think 95% of the international community or people who we speak to, right, are pretty anti this war. They're not going to take, unless they are hardcore supporter of Netanyahu or Smotrich or Trump and MAGA, they're not going to support the war. But I'm willing to go out on a whim and say that I think a lot of countries would not be on board with Iran having a nuclear weapon, let alone detonating it. Right or wrongly, as to your point about they feel that they need to, I'm just skeptical whether they would actually support them doing that. What do you think?
No, I can see a logic to it that they would. Again, this if you have if you can construct the ideal world, yeah, sure, you'd prefer they not have it. But the world they live in is a world in which Iran has now been viciously attacked twice. And while they are trying to negotiate on this very issue to say, we don't want a nuke. But the United States and Israel would not take yes for an answer. So what do you do in that circumstance? You know, when you've made repeated efforts to provide guarantees that you don't have a nuke, that you're not building a nuke, and instead you are attacked, and your leadership's killed. You know, they try to decapitate. You know, what are you going to do? At that point, you've got to take the measures to defend yourself. And the only proven measure of defense so far, at least the example of North Korea, is you get a nuke and you are protected.
No, I understand the logic and I agree with it. I'm just challenging you, I guess, on the reception that would be had from other third party nations. But on this point, then, I'm curious for your thoughts on this theory that I've been had in my mind, which is, I think for a long time, the Iranians did think the best the nuclear option they had was to get the nuclear weapon. But I think that the war with Trump has given them some strategic clarity in the sense of that having the nuclear weapon may be a decent deterrent, but they might even have a better one, which is that because of the way that the global economy is integrated with the US, you know your economics, we discussed it, I think, briefly last time, but the exorbitant privilege and duty, right? I think that the Strait of Hormuz and the ability to apply pressure on the pressure cooker, the pressure valve of the Strait of Hormuz is their single biggest deterrence now, even more than a nuclear weapon, because as far as I'm aware, the Iranians don't have a nuclear weapon fully yet. They're near nuclear, but they haven't yet got the delivery capability. You may have more information about that than I'm not privy to, but
yeah, I don't. Other, what all the source said was that they would do it not for an attack, but for a demonstration, just to tell the West, okay, we have one now, and leave us alone.
How would that work then? Let's just let's play this out a little bit. So how would they? Did your source share any more information about like where they would test it or in what way?
Nope, no information on where. I would assume that if they did something like that, it'd be in a remote area in Iran. They do have plenty of remote areas, and they may even go as far as to tell the United States, "Be looking here, watch this site, this date and time. You're going to see something." And then the U.S. will see it, and then they go, "Okay, Iran has now gone nuclear. They've joined the club." So I think that I don't welcome that, but the reality of what we're looking at is, in terms of who attacks whom, the United States has a track record of attacking non-nuclear states and leaving nuclear countries alone. So I understand the logic. Therefore, if someone's saying, you know what, this may violate our religious principles, this may even violate our traditional strategic doctrine, but we need to do it in order to protect ourselves.
Yeah, I see the logic as well. Certainly, you need some form of heavy deterrence to ensure your existence, your survival in the case of the regime. I'm just skeptical of the slippery slope, the trickle down effect it has elsewhere. So
yeah, it definitely could. It could lead to that.
No, that's what I'm just thinking. I'm thinking about the next day. I'm thinking about the move after they launch it, because once you launch a nuclear weapon, and that's actually quite interesting to me, because if you're going to launch a nuclear weapon, you want to do so in a way that it ensures it doesn't have any spillover effect, right? You want to ensure that the radiation won't hit American bases, it won't hit the Gulf states, because if it does,
they're not talking about launching. Again, they're talking about doing a demonstration, just like what happened at Los Alamos the first time they tested the atomic bomb. That you have it in a specific, yeah, not drop. You build a tower, you put it in a specific location, and you detonate it there above ground, or they do a below ground, to demonstrate that they do have it. So they may be not inclined to do an open air demonstration, but a demonstration that could be convincing to say, okay, yeah, they do have a nuke, but they launched it. It was detonated underground.
Wait, so an underground detonation, that's going to significantly limit the blast, though, Larry, and not really have much of an implication at all. If anything,
it's not so much the blast that you're trying to prove the concept that we got it. We have one. We haven't launched it above ground, but now we have one. So now you have to, in your calculation, say, if we try to launch an attack on Iran, and they've got 1, 2, 3 nuclear weapons ready to go that could be fired, we don't know where they'd be fired from, then it's going to force someone like Israel, who's, they're like 1/80th the size of Iran. For Israel to launch a nuke at sites in Iran is a much, much bigger technical problem, simply by virtue of the size of Iran. Whereas for Iran, hitting a target in Israel is far easier because it's a much smaller country.
Well, geographical size doesn't really have much relevance, I think, to blast capability and radius.
Well, no, it has. Well, it's not the blast capability. It's about what targets can you hit, and the ability of a country that's much smaller to absorb damage. It's like the difference between a sumo wrestler fighting a midget. And they're each punching each other. Who can absorb more blows?
But you were saying that the Iranians don't have any intention of launching it or using it. So then why does it matter about Israel's size?
Well, no, you stay with me on the sequence. All they've said so far is they will do a demonstration. That doesn't mean they're going to launch.
That gives us nothing to go on. I'm challenging you here because it's quite nebulous. What does it mean to do a demonstration of a nuclear weapon? What does that mean?
I just said before, you're not listening. Like Los Alamos, that one that took place above ground. But you can do a test below ground where you can show that you can detonate it. And there's recordings with seismic indicators and other things that can confirm that such a blast took place. You demonstrate that you've got it. That's demonstration. That doesn't mean that you launch it at a particular target.
But history has shown that when countries have done that, it can lead to significant negative repercussions in the near surrounding area. Earthquakes, tremors.
Give me an example.
Pakistan, Soviet Union, just to name
two. Well, what specifically? I mean, they've tested nuclear weapons, and what specific area in Pakistan that was damaged?
Yeah, there were seismic tremors done in the 1960s or 70s. I can't remember the exact date when they did this, and the implications of testing of a hydronuclear weapon was pretty risky. Led to tremors which caused a landslide, if I remember correctly. So,
yeah, I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, well, no, as I say, I get your point. It's a significant development. I would be amiss though to not be picking it apart, because I think it's an incredibly huge shift. Right, we're entering a completely new phase of war if the Iranians do that.
No, that's the point. That's the point. That's Iran's message to the world. We're entering a new phase. That's why they would do it.
So, what do you think what do you think the implications would be for the Israelis? What's the calculus for Washington and Tel Aviv then?
Now they don't have a risk-free ability to use a nuclear weapon on Iran. They have to recognize Iran could dump one on us. Iran wouldn't dump one like on Jerusalem, but they sure as hell could dump one on Tel Aviv and take out Tel Aviv. You know, that would make Israel's survival, definitely in question. Whether they could even survive after that.
I think what's interesting, if we want to, because I think this is really fascinating. So, from the people I've spoken to and contacts I have across Southern Asia, there have been rumblings about Pakistan potentially providing that kind of information, not to Iran, but to Saudi Arabia. So this was something that was rumbling along. You may have heard of this, I think, late last year. They signed a partnership.
Yeah.
Do you think
they promised, my understanding is Pakistan has already promised the Saudis a nuclear cover, that if attacked, that they would be covered and protected by Pakistan. So any consideration of attacking Saudi Arabia would come with the attendant of a nuclear response on behalf of Saudi Arabia. Now, it's possible that the Pakistanis may offer that same deal to Iran. But all I'm saying is, right now, this one source, who's, you start off, we know that this person has access. We know that this person is privy to the discussions that are underway, both underway between the United States and as Pakistan as the intermediary. And they said the Iranians took a decision, and the Iranians were going to do 1, 2, and 3. Said that last Thursday, and the first thing that he said they would do, they just did yesterday. Okay? So now we'll see if number 2 happens.
I've heard it.
So that's the way. That's when you're dealing with intelligence, you don't get perfect information, and then you always constantly have to be reassessing it. And so if what are the implications of that if Iran takes that step? Yeah, it is. It's to use Star Wars terminology. It's a disturbance in the force. it sets a new table, and one that's potentially more dangerous. But it's also that the Iranians have apparently taken the decision that they face an existential threat if they don't do something along these lines. But in the context of that, they have been actively coordinating with Russia, China, and there's also clear evidence of North Korea has been making visits to Iran and meeting with members of the IRGC. So, you have to entertain the possibility of North Korea sharing some of its capabilities, along with Pakistan.
Yeah, looking at some of the comments, a lot of people think I'm stupid just because I differ with you, or I'm willing to challenge you, which I think.
Well, you're not stupid. You're not stupid. It's okay to ask questions.
Yeah, I know. People just don't like hearing an alternative sense of perspective, which is why they need to get up. But
am I yelling at you?
No.
Am I telling? What was the phrase that Matt Tardio used about you?
Oh, I'm
intellectually dishonest.
Yeah. No.
Have I said that? No.
My favorite, Larry, is this chap here. I'm going to put it on the screen for everyone. Apparently, you're wasting your time with Donny Osmond. So apparently, I look like Donny Osmond.
Well, actually, you do a little bit in his younger days, and take that as a compliment. The girls loved him.
Yeah, no, I'm all right.
I'll be upset if you start singing and they called it puppy love. All right, that'll be crossing the line.
No, I was a singer when I was a kid, actually, and I sing George Michael quite well, which I also get told a little bit sometimes.
Yeah, I could see that too.
In his Wham days. Anyway, so okay, let's talk a little bit about the actual war concessions here, because I saw a report earlier. It's quite unconfirmed that the Trump administration have basically, because of maybe they've got wind of the information we've been debating for the past 25 minutes about this.
Well, let me clarify. They didn't just get wind of it. According to the intelligence report, after the meeting of the Iranian National Security Council, President Pezeshkian was directed to go inform Prime Minister Sharif of Pakistan, which he did. And then Sharif turned around and told the foreign minister to go tell Marco Rubio. And apparently that conversation took place last Thursday. So Rubio passed it on. And judging by Trump's reactions yesterday in the wake of that Iranian announcement, I think now the Trump administration is taking that warning seriously, because that's in part why Trump then got on the phone with Bibi Netanyahu. Now, depending on whose version of the story you listen to, Axios has one version where Trump is calling Bibi Netanyahu a fucking moron, or are you fucking crazy? Then there's the Trump version, which says, it was a polite, cordial conversation, but firmly expressed. And then you have the Bibi Netanyahu version, which painted to make Bibi look much better. So who's right? But what we can say is usually the heated rhetoric and threats that Trump is used to making, he really hasn't made any of those in the last 24, 36 hours. Since that threat, since the decision came public, okay, we're withdrawing. Trump has actually tried. He's avoided a lot of doing any truth postings on this per se, and he's been pretty calm. So, that tells me that I think the Americans are taking that seriously, and they're trying to diffuse it.
There was Rubio's comments today. It just sounds to me like the U.S. administration is talking with one hand, and then Trump is talking with the other, right? His team.
Hello, I congratulate you on noticing what has been his standard operating procedure for God since he first became president in 2017.
MO, yeah, no, his MO is essentially just to shit talk his own team. One wonders why, maybe just for shits and bants, but shits and giggles. But Rubio was having yet again earlier to clarify the sanctions relief that is coming. That won't come for Iran. But then Trump is saying that they're making decent progress towards it. And one thing I heard from an insider in DC was that the US is Trump's really coming around to this idea of unfreezing the assets. Maybe not sanctions relief, because that sounds worse on paper or in the media, but unfreezing their assets because it's sort of simpler to do and doesn't sound quite as politically bad.
Trump's playing, they're playing on borrowed time. So they've managed now to keep the price of oil or petro. So put it into British terms, or gasoline into American terms.
I would never have understood otherwise. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, right. So, they've actually brought the price down about 50, 60 cents. How have they done that? They have drained the strategic oil reserve. The strategic oil reserve in the United States is now at its lowest level in 43 years. And what is that important? Because it was only 43 years ago that we started filling up a strategic oil reserve. So what they're saying is they basically almost emptied it now. Meanwhile, the United States continues having to import the heavy crude from Canada, Mexico, and Venezuela, because heavy crude is the source of diesel fuel. And so the diesel fuel now still remains about $2 more per gallon than gasoline. So the strategic oil reserve does nothing to impact the supply of diesel, because diesel comes out of an entirely different production chain. So and then other very prominent analysts now are stepping up saying, we're going to have a major oil crisis, and it's going to lead to a spiral in the price of gasoline. I just let me see if I can find this one. Mark Mills he's a renowned international energy analyst, and he just sent out a chart that says entering new territory for global oil inventories, getting closer to Katie bar the door trigger for oil prices. So, then he's a man of some renown, who has made his living on that. There's others like Art Berman. He too has presented the data that's widely available. So the United States we've been able to avoid an full-blown economic crisis, catastrophe, by virtue of drawing down our strategic oil reserves. But again, there are other elements of the cutoff of supplies out of the Strait of Hormuz from the Gulf Arabs that are very, very damaging to the global economy as a whole.
Well, that's mainly my point about the Strait of Hormuz. The capabilities and the lack of risks relative to developing a warhead, I think, is so stark now for the Iranians that they can develop both, but they're not maybe under such a time-sensitive pressure as they used to be around gaining a warhead. I think that they've really come to understand that their biggest asset is just simply geography and the Strait of Hormuz. Whether or not they seek to obtain and detonate or demonstrate a warhead is another matter. But I think that the IRGC have become a lot more clear-minded in what their options are. If that's
I apologize for interrupting you, but I just want to add to that and all of this may just be a negotiating position for Iran. They may not actually have any full intention of carrying through on it, but they wanted to provide enough, signs. Okay, we've done step one, now we've done step two, that the United States is going to say, okay, they're serious about step three. Let's let us get serious about the negotiations, because there is an off ramp here, and it's not very palatable as far as the United States is concerned, but the off ramp is sanction relief, release frozen assets, accept Iranian control of the Strait of Hormuz. But under that control, Iran's going to allow ships to start passing. They'll be asked to make a payment to so that Iran can rebuild its infrastructure that has been damaged in the war. But they get that back to normal, and then Iran says, then we'll sit down and talk about nukes. If your real concern, America, is that we don't have a nuclear weapon, fine, we'll talk about that. But you see, that's the whole issue about that the nuclear Iran's position as a quote nuclear power is the central issue of this. That's nonsense. It's an excuse for wanting to effect regime change and for the United States to get control of Iran. That's what the U.S. wants.
Well, there's no denying that. That was the first thing Trump said. Trump thinks that he could do the same with Iran as he did in Venezuela, which is the saddest comparison I think one can make, but it's obviously very Trump-esque. So he thinks he can sort of put pressure. I mean, people, again, I'm reading the comments. People really don't like me. The comments. It's great, but we agree a lot.
Okay, people watching. Go easy on Peter here. You know, he's
no. I don't need you to watch.
It's better to have a healthy debate, and it's better to ask questions. You're not disrespectful in answering the question and asking the questions, and you're not being an obnoxious prick. So it's like lighten up on the kid, guys.
Yeah, well, that's why people think because
I am being ageist here. Okay, I am calling you a kid. I'm 71 years old. You're not even the age of my son. My son's 45. Okay, so you're a kid, which is a good thing. There's nothing wrong with being a kid. Enjoy it. I was one once myself.
What is it? I think Mario is 36. I think he told me once he's a bit older than me. So he's like half your age. I'm not even half your age, so no.
See what you have to look forward to? You get to wear a Panama hat.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think I told you this story the first time we ever spoke, but I remember my best cigar was in Cuba about 8 years ago. We went for a month. And I had some of the best Cuban cigars. I had some of the best rum. I have at least two shirts similar to yours from that trip. That was amazing. Yeah, no, it's I just find it amusing because people seem to think that sort of I'm being disrespectful. It's like, no, that's part of. You wouldn't be here if you didn't think it was worth doing, right? So I think people need to, open their minds a little bit. But anyway,
but we're showing how people should get along. You can disagree. You can even have a different opinion. And in doing that, I don't have to attack the sexuality of your mother. Okay.
Has someone done that?
Well, usually when you get into these exchanges and someone starts calling you motherfucker, right away you bring your mother's sexuality into this. I don't do that.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I love it when I think I was in Southern America once, and they're like, "Oh, sure, you son of a bitch," and I was like, "Was there a word? Was that a phrase or one single word?" The way that they put "son of a bitch" all together in just one word is quite incredible. Anyway,
in South America, it's "hijo de puta" or "pendejo." Okay, actually, so yeah, I learned. Unfortunately, I learned. I learned to swear in Spanish while building a church.
We should do a stream in Spanish sometime.
¿Cómo no? ¿Cómo quieres?
Ok, yo necesito practicar más mi diferentes temas para las preguntas, pero una idea para la próxima. Anyway, so one question I do have actually, which is, what do you think about some of the statements that Mojtaba is actually getting more active now? I don't know if you see this, but one report was saying that he's on with that.
Say that again. It broke up a little bit.
Mojtaba, the supreme leader, because he's been pretty out until now. What's your view on that? Because he's apparently getting more active. He's getting more directly involved in things, which
they're keeping him out of sight simply to protect him. because Israel will kill him if they get the chance. So they're taking extra steps to protect him. But I can understand, how would, if somebody killed your wife and your baby daughter and your mother and your father, would that anger you at all? Would that cause you to want to exact some sort of revenge on those who did that? That to me is a normal human reaction. It'd almost be inhuman to not have any feelings about that. So definitely have feelings. Then the question is with Mustafa, is he allowing his emotions to guide his decision making, or is he being more like Spock from Star Trek? Logic and trying to separate the emotion out of it, and thinking also in terms of what's best for my country, what's best for my nation. Now,
so
the
I
West.
show my age here again and say that I have never actually really watched Star Trek. So that.
Okay, dude, you need to. Yeah, you need to go back and watch some of the early episodes. So Leonard Nimoy played this character Spock, who was devoid of emotion. He was nothing but logic. It was always, he didn't understand this, happiness and joy stuff. He was like, and sadness. He was just like, here are the facts. Here's the science. Let's apply it. And, never thought through about the human emotion side of it.
Okay. No, my mother's a huge fan of the original series, so I'll ask her as well. She's similar to your age, I think. Although
she's not. She's your mother's probably what, early 60s,
something like that, mid maybe.
Yeah.
Important one next year, but yeah. Still, I think it's really interesting to see how his greater influence is going to do for the negotiations. I mean, at this point, it just seems to me like the MOU is just sort of being used as the banner, but both sides are kind of negotiating at the same time anyway. To your point about concessions, for the US, at least to me, it looks like they're really climbing down on their maximalist demands, whilst the Iranians just seem to be holding firm.
No, they're not moving. They've said, "Hey, here's our position. This is our position. We're not changing." Whereas Trump is he's on shifting sands. They put out these maximalist demands and then start backing away. Of course, that's one of his art of the deal negotiating tactics. But it doesn't you can get away with that in real estate and casinos. It's not clear you can get away with that with geopolitics when you're dealing with nations. And let me just make one other point to illustrate. If you watch Danny Danon, the Israeli ambassador to the UN yesterday, he was going on and on about how dastardly Hezbollah was. Oh, they're killing Israelis. Really? So ask, how many Israeli civilians have been killed in the last 2 weeks, the last 4 weeks by Hezbollah attacks? I'm not sure we've even had one confirmed fatality among civilians. Now, have there been lots of, fatalities and casualties among Israeli soldiers? Absolutely. That's why it's okay to attack combatants. And, that if you turn the question around and say, how many civilians have the Israelis killed in the past 4 weeks? We're talking thousands.
Wow, it's like 4,000 now in Lebanon. It's just disgusting. Well,
so I mean, when we step back and say, let's take an objective look at this. Who's the one that's killing civilians? It's not Hezbollah. It's the Israelis. And so that ought to weigh in the argument somewhat. Oh
yeah, I mean,
there's one of your commenters just asked, favorite spy movie. Smiley's People. It's not a movie. It was a series. The first section was called Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy with Alec Guinness, and then Smiley's People with Alec Guinness. That's my favorite.
I can't have a favorite movie. I think my favorite is just James Bond, but the originals, like, I used to really love Roger Moore, but I have to be honest, GoldenEye really came, the first one that Pierce Brosnan did. I think it was just the slightly more modern, where he dives off the dam in is it Azerbaijan? You know, that incredible stunt in '95. Okay, well, still. So, Larry, let's talk about the economy briefly. So right now, I think one of the biggest concerns for people on the Iranian side is, does the Iranian economy have enough endurance? Does it have enough time versus the political pressure for Donald Trump? Because his rating fell down yet again today. I think it's under 30. It's under 28% or something. It's the lowest that any US president has ever been, I think, at this point.
Yeah, he's in he's going to be. Let's put it this way: getting a colonoscopy will be more popular than Donald Trump at the rate he's going. So yeah, and you're not at the age where you've had to have one. So, but again, let me give you another obscure sort of film reference. In the first James Bond, Goldfinger, the guitarist that played the theme music was Jimmy Page of Led Zeppelin.
Mm-hmm. One of my favorite bands.
John Paul Jones was playing the bass on that. They were both session musicians back then. This is pre-Led Zeppelin days. But anyway, you know, we'll come back to topic with with Trump. Trump is caught, and he, you know, the weight of the economic crisis that's going to descend on America, it's on the horizon now. It's in fact, the odds are it will likely hit full force around July 4th, when he's wanting to have the celebration of the 250th anniversary of the founding of the United States. And that'll come against the backdrop of surging inflation and declining, the collapsing economy. Just today in Florida, for example, there's a fast food restaurant. You may be familiar with it, Popeyes. You know, Popeyes does fried chicken.
Yeah, unfortunately.
They closed like 219 of the restaurants.
Are you serious?
I'm dead serious.
Wow, that's huge. Wow,
Yeah.
if you've got, well, I mean, I don't
so,
like, but if it's
when you're taking snapshots across the economy, you're not seeing happy, productive signs popping up. You're seeing red flashing lights, yellow flashing lights. There's warning, trouble ahead.
Well, that's really interesting though, because to me, what a lot of MAGA supporters or the guy who called me intellectually dishonest were emphasizing or just yelling in that latter case was simply that the economy is fine because
You're being intellectually dishonest. Sorry, I had to.
No, it's cool. I love that you've got something that triggers you in a good way, right? I'd love to get you guys on for a debate, actually. I think that'd be absolutely hilarious. Do you do debates? We should get you on for a debate.
I do, but oftentimes it's got to be strictly controlled, where I don't want anyone talking over me. So, they say their piece, I say my piece, and then people get to decide, who's talking with facts and rationality and who's talking with emotion.
Any quick fire rounds? Like, this is okay. You're giving me food for thought here. Okay, I will think about that. We can chat offline about doing that maybe. But yeah. So okay, simply then, one of the things that I think is incredibly disingenuous of them or intellectually dishonest is that they seem to forget the secondary or third points of the value chain, right? So. Mm-hmm. Not the primary or raw materials, but when it's already being constructed into the secondary or tertiary industry, and then it has to come back into the United States. That's what so many people seem to be forgetting, that yes, the US has its own oil, it has its own gas or whatever, it's become the biggest exporter. Yeah, but that's only for the rawest of materials. That oil still has to go back to produce materials and other goods that have to then come back into the US economy, which, mind you, are only exacerbated by Trump's own stupid tariffs. So,
well, yeah, excuse me, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No,
I was just going to say that the United States is an exporter of light crude. That's the kind of oil that you can make gasoline, petrol out of. But it is a net importer. It is not energy independent. It is dependent on imports of heavy crude in order to produce diesel. And as you're just intimating right there, diesel is at the heart of the American economy right now. You cut diesel, or you start raising the price of diesel significantly, it's going to have a cascading effect across the economy, because everything you buy at a store was brought there by a truck that was running on diesel, most likely. And, so that is, that's one of the effects. It's been a delayed effect, but it's again, that's going to start hitting the U.S. economy, the global economy hard. So let me just give you a warning. I've got a 7:30 engagement I have to
No, that's fine. I had one last question for you anyway. It's been an absolute, I think it's been a refreshing conversation. We've had so many conversations together where we've largely been in agreement. And I think it's been refreshing to have a slightly more divergent one, or just to pick up some of the points and sort of see where they go. And I guess my last question is simply, so what do you think if the Iranians do seek to do step number 2 of withdrawing the NPT, how do you think that they would play that? How would they frame it, do you think, and what do you think they would follow?
They'll announce that despite years of efforts to negotiate in good faith with the West about a reasonable controls and guarantees that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon, that in spite of all of those efforts, that Iran has constantly been attacked, its civilians, its citizens murdered, and therefore it feels it can no longer be encumbered by that restriction, that it must look to the defense of its people. I can see them making that argument. Now, would others accept it? Some would, some wouldn't. But hey, welcome to the real world, huh?
And who really cares what they say anyway, because once they've got it, and no one can really do anything to stop them, including the US. So on that very last point, what do you think what will be the response from the US and Israel?
The US is going to try, I think they're going to have to try to they'll try to de-escalate. I think they will ultimately, I can see Trump, it wouldn't be the first time that when he recognizes his popularity is in the toilet, and that all these efforts to, do happy talk and pretend that he's doing great, he's not doing great, and to start rebuilding if he can. It may be too late, frankly, but, he's still got 2.5 years left in his presidency. So he might still be able to reconstruct a decent legacy. But right now, he's on the path to becoming the 21st century version of Herbert Hoover. And the Hoover descendants will be grateful for that, because it takes their grandfather or great-grandfather off a list and puts Trump front and center.
I think you're being a bit mean to Henry Hoover, though, aren't you?
Harry, yeah.
Harry Hoover, sorry.
Herbert Hoover,
sorry. My inexperience of the years exposing my ignorance there.
So anyway, one of your commenters asked about the cigar. So it's an Alec Bradley Superstition. They're made in Honduras. They are fabulous cigars. I'm not a paid spokesman for the company. I would be if anybody out there listening. Hey, hire me, and I'll be happy to smoke your brand, because I do anyway.
Nice. Well, Larry, I'll let you go on that light-hearted note. We'll call it a great stream and conversation. Remind everybody where they can find you, what your channel and website.
Sonar21.com.
Sonar21.com, everyone. Be sure to find Larry's great commentary and cigar recommendations there, and of course shirts and hats. But thanks all very much for watching. Speak to you soon. And don't forget to
all right, Peter. Have a great evening.